Hi, this is Elizabeth Blandon. I'm here on behalf of the Blandon Law team, the team that I like to call citizen makers. And I'm going to be speaking about naturalization. Naturalization has really rocketed in 2019. More people are applying to become citizens than ever before. And this is the reason why sometimes it can take about almost 2 years to become a citizen of the United States once somebody applies. So a hello to everyone who is joining us today. I hope you find this information useful. Feel free to ask questions and also share it with your friends later on after the video has posted. We're doing, as usual, both Facebook and Instagram at the same time. So one of the questions that everybody asks is, what can I expect at the naturalization interview? And at its core, the naturalization interview is going to be really simple. They're going to ask you about the application. They're going to go through it and make sure that all the information is correct. The other thing they're going to ask is English questions to make sure you know how to read and write English properly, although some people can have an exception to that. And the third thing is they want to make sure that you know your civics, because government civics are also questions that they can ask. But we're not talking about the application, we're not going to talk about the civics, and we're not going to talk about the English and all their exceptions. We're going to talk about something that really gets to the core for some people, because many people throughout their life have been arrested. And when they go to their naturalization interview, they're very, very nervous that they're going to have a problem becoming citizens because of past offenses that they've been arrested for. And, you know, I'm going to tell you the truth. I think it's very wise to be on the cautious side when you've ever been arrested. In fact, there was a time when I used to tell people, if you've ever been arrested, make sure you have a lawyer in the room. And I'll tell you why I gave that advice. It may or may not be true for you. You may decide to go on your own. And that's what Giving Tuesday is all about. In case you decide to apply for citizenship on your own and you decide to go into that interview room with the U.S. Citizen and Immigration Services officer on your own, then this is the video for you. So what can you expect for the officer to ask you about past arrests? And here is something that not too many people know. That officer is looking not only to review certain documents, and I'll talk about what documents you're going to need to submit a little bit later, but that officer is looking not only to find out what's in the documents and what's on the application. They are looking to see what you admit to. They're going to be asking many, many questions about not only that offense, but something known as the statutory period. Because, and here's the key, if you admit, and yes, we'll do a live on VAWA for Shauna who asked for it. We'll be doing a live in the future on VAWA. But this one's about naturalization and past offenses. So if you admit to an offense, if you say, you know, yes, I stole this, but I didn't really mean to, even if you were not convicted for that theft, you suddenly admitted to a theft. And that is what the immigration officer is looking for. The immigration officer is looking to see what you admit to. And why? Because in immigration land, if you admit to something, it's the same thing as having been convicted of it. And that is startling for people when they go to interviews on their own. They are shocked to find that out. So what is the officer also going to focus on that I call the statutory period, that's known as the statutory period? So before you apply for citizenship, before you send in that naturalization application, there's a period for 5 years right before it. So if you send in your application this 20th of January of 2019, they're looking for the 21st of January, 2014 until the day you filed. And that's known as your statutory period. For most people, it's going to be 5 years, but there's a couple of exceptions. One is if you obtained residency based on being married to a U.S. citizen, right? Or then the statutory period becomes 3 years. Also, for somebody who's asking about VAWA, citizenship, if you obtained it based on VAWA, will also come faster. So in some situations, yes, you can become a citizen much faster if you are applying for residency based on Violence Against Women Act. There's a lot of things that you don't have to wait for if you get a green card based on the Violence Against Women Act law. And one of them is this. One of them is citizenship. So the statutory period is important because that is what the officer of immigration is going to grill down on. You can bet your bottom dollar that they're going to grill down on that period of time, and they're going to ask you about every single possible offense that may have happened during that time. But don't think they're going to forget about other things. I once had a client who was asked about something that happened 20 years before she filed for it. And by the way, it was an offense where she gave a false name. So she didn't even think they were going to ask about that. But yes, indeed, they do. Why? Because they can also look for any evidence of any behavior that might affect the statutory period. And let me give you an example. So let's say they're looking to see, they see a DUI during the last 5 years, right? And people say, oh, that's no big deal. I've only had one DUI. I'm going to get my citizenship because my friend Fred only had one DUI and my friend Fred was able to get citizenship. Well, here's where that doesn't work. When you go into that interview, they might ask you about the last 20 years, whether you have a problem with drinking, whether your parents have a problem with drinking. They're going to go into great detail, and they might get you to admit that, yeah, 10 years ago, you might have been a member of Alcoholics Anonymous. The reason they're asking all these questions is to find out if they can get you to admit that not only did you commit that one DUI for which you were convicted, but you also had other DUIs for which you were not arrested, for which you were not convicted. And that's why on the application, sometimes it'll even ask, have you ever committed an offense for which you were not arrested? If they get you to admit that you have been driving under the influence while you were driving under the influence, right there, you just admitted it, and that means you might have 2 offenses even though you have only 1 conviction. And you may find yourself that you're not becoming a citizenship. Are not becoming a citizen, rather. There are some really deep consequences to not becoming a citizen. And I always tell people that if they have any fear that they might not become a citizen because of offenses, even if those offenses that they were not arrested for, they might at a minimum want to get an analysis from an attorney. Okay? So that is what I can tell you about what to expect at an interview. You're going to be grilled, you're going to be asked a lot of questions, and you have to have all your facts and dates very straight and know why you're going in and where your weak spots are on your application. Now, what documents should you provide? So, of course, there's instructions there that explain pretty much what documents that you should provide. But in terms of the offenses, let me just say something. There's something called a certified copy, right? A certified copy, I always say it's a copy of a document and then it's got a seal that has a color. The color can be red or blue. A certified copy is the same as an original. So when someone commits an offense, has been arrested and convicted of anything, or just arrested, immigration cannot make you a citizen unless they've seen a copy of what's known as the arrest report or the incident report, a certified copy, and a certified copy of the court disposition. Here we have heard almost every reason as to why people cannot get certified copies of their court dispositions. Oh, it's in a separate state, I can't get it, or the court burned down, or if it gets that hard to get your documents, hire a private investigator. We work with one here in Blandon Law. These documents are very important. Your citizenship is very important. What you become, the power that you have as a citizen is multiplied more times than I can stress. You become part of this country. You may have lived here as a resident for 30 years, but unless you get your citizenship, your voice doesn't count and you are not voting in elections. So I strongly, 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 here at Blandon Law, we do want to make people citizens, but you need to know what you're going to include. You're going to include a certified copy of the arrest report. You're going to include a certified copy of the court disposition, even if the court disposition says no charge was ever filed, what is also known as no pros. Here's the sad part. Often, police officers write really nasty things in arrest reports. And I wonder whether it's because they know that people are going to plea bargain down. They know that if they write 4 different charges, people might plead to just one of them. So clients often say to me that they do not want to submit an arrest report because it says some pretty nasty stuff. Well, thankfully, the officers at immigration are aware of this, and a police report will not be taken at face value. But the stronger the wording on the arrest report, the more questions you will be asked. So if you have an arrest report, and you must look at it before you submit your application for citizenship, if you have an arrest report and it says some really nasty things, you resisted arrest without violence, but you did resist arrest, or, like it has 5 charges, even if you were convicted of only 1, even if you were convicted of only the DUI, but you have 4 other charges that were brought against you, you're going to get grilled very, very hard. So the reason for this video is I want you to understand that you can't just go to your friend Fred who has a DUI conviction and say, did you get your citizenship? Because every case is different. And you can get citizenship with a DUI. I'm not saying you can't. I'm just saying be prepared. Knowledge is power. Go in there, go get your citizenship, but know when you might need professional help. And I would say that anytime you see a lot of charges on an arrest report, anytime you see that you might have more than 1 arrest, even if you were not convicted, these will be things where you're going to want to go in there with an attorney. Because what you're wondering, okay, well, what can an attorney do? An attorney won't be able to talk, and that's absolutely true. An attorney cannot talk on your behalf, but an attorney can submit something that's called a legal brief. It's an argument, and it will have the facts that you say, March 10th, 2015, I was arrested for this, but it'll also explain the law as to why you deserve to get citizenship, even though those facts happened. So you might want to consider it or not. There are some things to know. If you were arrested for and convicted of, or you admit to something known as a crime involving moral turpitude, or more than 1 crime involving moral turpitude, you might find yourself in deportation proceedings, okay? And that's when I say you might not want to risk it on your own. If you feel that the risk is a little high, you might want to go see an attorney, at least to talk to an attorney before you submit your application. You don't want to get in hot water. I'm always reminded of a family that I really hold near and dear to my heart. He was married to a U.S. citizen. He is married to a U.S. citizen, and he has 2 lovely U.S. citizen children. And he went to apply for his citizenship, and he thought everything was fine because he'd been a resident for a long time. When he went to apply for his citizenship, everything was fine. By the way, he speaks perfect English. He got a decision saying he was going to be deported, and he didn't know why. He came to see us at that moment, when he suddenly realized he's going to lose his wife, his 2 children, and the country he'd grown up in. Why were they going to deport him? Because in 1997, while he was in high school, they told him to write a voter registration card, and he did. And that means he said he was going to be a citizen. He said he was a citizen, and he wasn't a citizen. And there is no way to avoid a deportation when you say that you're a citizen. There's absolutely no defense to that. So that happened in July 97, and here he was in the year 2000 something applying for citizenship, and they were going to deport him because of something that happened when he was a teenager. What was the saving grace? The law that says you're going to get deported for saying that you're a U.S. citizen came to power in September 1997. And that is how we avoided his deportation. And no, it didn't matter that he was underage. I love that you say that. Great catch. There is no defense to saying you're a U.S. citizen. He was 17 at the time. And even though he did it because other people were telling him to do it, this was normal. There are very few exceptions, and one of the underage exceptions is if one of your parents is a U.S. citizen, and in that case, neither of his two parents were U.S. citizens. So a minor has to also have a reason to believe they're a U.S. citizen. Anyway, the story ended up very nicely, and that's how I hope the stories end up for you. I hope they end up very nicely as citizens with your oath, taking your oath and getting your naturalization certificate. It's a very beautiful day, and it's one we look forward to for all our clients. We wish you all the greatest of success, and if you want to be our clients, we hope to open the door to your success. So for Blandon Law, that's today's Giving Tuesday. See you next time.